today in our Sunday Spotlight, and this is a first for this program. Our next guest's claim to fame, or one of them, is that he can roll up a t-shirt, and if he rolls it up just right, he can throw it into the second deck of a sports stadium. He, of course, is Connor Geary, better known in these parts as Gameday Connor. He works with the Yard Goats, the Connecticut Sun, and, of course, UConn's football and basketball teams, getting the crowds excited about the games. Connor joins me this morning. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
So what does
Eric.
it take to hit the second deck? That's a skill.
Yeah, so I was not good at physics in high school, but I've learned that a smaller T-shirt folded and rolled more tightly will travel better than a larger T-shirt.
Of course, everybody recognizes you from being on the microphone at so many of these events. Your real employer is the Hartford Yard Goats.
That's correct.
And they've got a big playoff game. And before we even get to everything about you, I just want you to tell us that's coming up in a couple weeks.
It sure is. September 19th, we will play Yard Goats playoff baseball for the first time in program history in downtown Hartford. It's a best-of-3 series, so we're guaranteed that game on the 19th. And if necessary, we would play the next game at Duncan Park as well, too, the following day. So very exciting times to be a Yard Goats fan and a baseball fan in Connecticut.
And tickets still available?
Tickets still available. Shameless plug, you can head to yardgoatsbaseball.com, and I hope to see you all there.
All right, now we've kept the bosses
That's right.
happy.
Yes,
Let's talk about you. So everyone knows you. Many people know you from those events, from the Yard Goats, from the Connecticut Sun, from UConn basketball, football. How did you get into this role?
Yeah, sure. Probably the most common question I get is, how do you get a job like this? And
you make one up, right?
It's luck of the Irish. I mean, it truly is. I kind of came from the hospitality background in Hartford. I worked in the restaurant business out of college, thinking that that was kind of how I wanted to take my career and maybe own my own spot one day. And I got working with the Hartford Yard Goats kind of on their promotion side before the stadium was built. And in the inaugural season in 2017, we had my father's surprise 60th birthday in one of the luxury suites. And I had such a great time that I decided that I wanted to work in that space. And after the first season concluded, I was hired as the events director. So it was my job to use the baseball stadium as an event venue year-round. The following spring, they had an opening for their on-field host, and I threw my hat in the ring, auditioned for that gig, got the gig for the Hartford Yard Goats at the ballpark, and then met UConn following a baseball game that was played there in the spring of 2018, and kind of every opportunity has just come from the previous role. So very, very lucky and in the right position, I suppose. A
great line, CT insider Mike Anthony wrote a great piece on you back in the winter of '23, and he called you a roller coaster of sound. And as someone, I told you, I admired you from the stands for a long time before we knew each other. And what does it take to get the crowd pumped, to have just the right tenor? And I mean, you got to be out there whether they're winning or losing, Connor.
Yeah, every crowd is kind of like a fingerprint, right? So there are differences, there are nuances between the size, the composition. Is it a kid's day, you know, or there are a lot of organizations, camps, whatever it might be. So I have to have an understanding, certainly, of who's in the venue, who's in the stadium, who's in the arena, who's in the XL Center, you know, who's in Gamble Pavilion. And understand the matchup, right? Is this a top 5, top 10 matchup that we're going through? And each one of those crowds will have something that I have to kind of be aware of. And so Mike did a great job when he followed me of kind of understanding that I am kind of taking the temperature of the venue at all times. Situationally, what's going on in the game of play? Are we anxious? Are we excited? Are we proud? How many students are there? All of those kinds of things will come into play when I approach kind of my role as the in-game host. And then, I got to feel it, and then I've got to meet that moment for the fans.
All right, I want you to keep your hand still, because we're going to show what you're wearing there on your right hand. Pretty cool recognition to have this UConn championship ring. I think we're trying to get a close-up of it right now. There it is. That's some pretty nice hardware, Connor, coming off of the national championship. That was the first of the back-to-back.
Yeah, this is for the 23 season.
So you're a Manchester kid. You graduated from East Catholic. You graduated from UConn in, wait a minute, Siena?
Yeah, I did
not. This
not.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I did not attend the University of Connecticut. Very proud that I went to Siena College just outside of Albany, but came home to Connecticut very shortly upon graduation. And I've been a UConn fan my entire life. I was a smaller pond kind of guy, and that's what took me to Siena.
Part of what, beyond the talent of hosting the games, part of what I've admired about you is you've built a thing. You've done NCAA championships now. We talked about going to places like the Connecticut Sun. This has become Gameday Connor, GameDayConnor.com. People can go on your website and hire you to come hype them up. What does it mean to you that you've built this thing coming from the restaurant industry and thinking, hey, I might want to get into this space?
I mean, I'm incredibly proud to be in this role. The fact that it has become more ubiquitous in Connecticut sports is something I could have never imagined. I thought I was getting involved in kind of a side gig, and it really has kind of taken on a life of its own. And every opportunity that I've gotten, again, has come from the previous one, so that's not lost on me. But I thank the fans, really. I mean, if they didn't take to me and give the organization's positive feedback on what I was doing out on the field or on the court, then somebody else would be doing this role. So I'm very proud to kind of have this game day title in the state of Connecticut. And no matter what comes next, I'm incredibly proud to be here, and I want to keep doing it.
Well, and you've been around the country because of your ability to do it, and hopefully some more opportunities will be there. Certainly a celebrity in the Connecticut sports world. Listen, I told you, my son, grew up with me, met every TV person there is, politicians. He was excited to meet you. He was excited that I knew Gameday Connor and could introduce him. That was a pretty big deal. So it's a big part of the fabric of being a Huskies fan is cheering along with you, spelling out UConn, doing the whole thing. And we appreciate you being here. And of course, we're not going to forget the Yard Goats, September 19th, playoff game. You'll be on the field getting the fans pumped up for that. We'll see you at UConn football games this fall, and we'll see you at Gamble Pavilion in the XL Center coming up in the winter.
Connecticut sports are having a heck of a run, so excited to be part of it. And thank you very much for having me.
All right, a Connecticut kid doing good things in Connecticut. We appreciate having you, Connor Geary.
Thank you.
That is CT'24 for this week. CBS Sunday Morning's coming up next. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll meet you back here, of course, in Studio A next Sunday morning.